na lang walay ganap po. Busy. Kanang ito kay time hagos magkuan pero marag kapuya sa gali ko sa so welcome back to me sa live. Oh, actually naka-breakfast dagan ako na ako nabuhat so naka-wash na ako sa uniform sa akong anak. Sis duha usad kay uniform. So kuan ako nang gayay si Luis. Sungod kay to shut down. Then nakaluto ko breakfast kanang quick breakfast lang para sa akong estudyante sa akong bana. Yeah. Ako siya naog na matak ng bana so nakakaon na siya og breakfast. Breakfast meaning ko lang siya kanang dili healthy kayo how do healthy na siya kanang egg so breakfast akong bana yung ikaw ganina kay nagyan ko fried rice which is kanang daghang pag garlic fried rice and then eggs then bacon niya karon kaya ako siyang gitawan og Milo and then while ako kay 3 in 1 ako katawan ako Milo ako ang toast bread ano pa so ano na ang toast bread na duhan lang so ano na ko libat na butang na ako nausad na and then ako breakfast nga tinubuhat kay eggs nana nakuha na that's yours well mine is coffee post magdaghay kuan bago sa Netflix ako nakita so ni-renew ko oy sa Netflix kay tungod atong boyfriend on demand kapag ito na showing kapag na release nga ako nang ka dito killer click daw to breakfast tapos ang student kay bacon
buwan ng Netflix di mag-upload og nindot kay para tagaman makakuan ka mag-upload na sila din tagaman
mag-upload sila ka lang padung na renew na ako ba
ayun na uy padung naman rin niya
di na ako mag-renew kaya nahaman ng Bridgerton so damay kaming si Jisoo renew na sad nindot kayong boyfriend on demand guys lingaw napil nagki-drama akong bana
ako rin nakanan ma
kini mo yung rice
ano naman itlog
mash man yung mga itlog dili man ingana mash niya wala hot na natanan wa ko'y kanon ha para imuha na siyempre ikaw may estudyante while ako akay
Sato? No?
Kasi na ko gitos kaya na magluto na egg dili rin ako niya siya butangan uguan
After massive Iranian missile strikes on Israel, combat alert was raised across all branches of the United States military. Air Force units, Marine Corps, fighter squadrons, all received the signal for combat readiness. The order went out immediately. Everything started moving at once. Marines were transported from their barracks to the airfield by bus. Upon arrival, they began loading into a C-17 Globemaster III, waiting on the tarmac with its rear ramp down. At the same time, cargo handlers were bringing in additional equipment on forklifts and flatbed carts. Portable generators, ammunition crates, communications gear, medical supplies. Everything was strapped down inside the cargo bay alongside the Marines. This aircraft was scheduled to make one stop at another military base to pick up more personnel and equipment before heading to the Middle East with a full load. At a nearby base, several more C-17s were already being loaded. Cargo handlers drove armored vehicles up the ramps. Tactical buggies, armored trucks, MRAPs, and other combat vehicles. At a separate airfield, mechanics were preparing fighter jets that would be used over the coming days for sustained strikes on enemy military targets. Every aircraft got full inspection. Avionics checked, radar systems tested, wiring and electronics gone over panel by panel. Missiles and guided bombs were loaded onto the pylons. Engine covers were removed. Intakes inspected, fuel systems checked. These fighters needed to be in perfect condition for continuous combat sorties over the next several days. Meanwhile, at another location on the base, soldiers were in the hangar going through their personal gear. They packed their duffel bags and rucksacks with everything they would need for an indefinite deployment. Uniforms, boots, hygiene kits, personal items, all packed and ready. These soldiers were not going on a short rotation. They were being sent to a military base in the Middle East for an unknown period of time. Nobody had a return date. At dusk, the order came to prepare for boarding. The soldiers formed up in columns outside the hangar and began marching toward their assigned aircraft. They walked up the ramps and took their seats inside the C-17s. Loadmasters did final checks on cargo and head counts. The ramps closed. One by one, the aircraft taxied to the runway and took off, disappearing into the darkening sky. Upon arrival in the Middle East, the C-17s landed and the unloading began immediately. Ramps dropped, soldiers filed out, vehicles were unchained and driven off, cargo pallets were pulled out by forklifts. Everything moved at an accelerated pace. These same aircraft would be turning around and flying back to make several more trips, picking up additional soldiers from other bases across the United States and delivering them here.
Sila doon na babae. Nag-iupo na. Sa rin lang na ikap.
For the soldiers stepping off the ramp and onto the tarmac, this base in the Middle East was now home for as long as the operation required. No set timeline, no return date on the calendar. They grabbed their bags, followed the directions from base personnel, and headed toward their assigned quarters. The buildup was underway, and more flights were already inbound. On the airfield, the maintenance crews work around the clock, preparing fighters for combat sorties. The aircraft are parked in rows on the apron, some under open sky, some pulled into hardened shelters. Fuel trucks pull up alongside each aircraft. A mechanic connects the single-point refueling nozzle to the port on the fuselage and starts pumping JP8 kerosene into the tanks. The fuel flow is monitored on the truck's gauge panel. Once the tanks read full, the hose is disconnected, the cap is sealed, and the truck moves to the next jet. Weapons teams bring ordnance on loading carts. Air-to-air missiles are lifted onto the wingtip rails and locked into place. Guided bombs are mounted on the underwing pylons using hoists. Each weapon is connected to the aircraft's electronics. The wiring harness is plugged in, the data link confirmed, the arming pins inserted with red flags hanging from them. The pins stay in until the aircraft is ready to taxi. Every weapon gets a visual inspection after mounting. The team checks the mounting lugs, the release mechanism, and the alignment of the pylon. The process repeats for every fighter on the line. One aircraft after another goes through the same sequence. Fuel, weapons, airframe, avionics, flight controls, engines. By the time the pilots arrive for their briefing, every jet on that ramp is fueled, armed, inspected, and ready to fly.
Highlands Gold made with Angus beef is premium, beefy, and juicy. Gets a 5-star rating from 3 of the country's elite chefs. Try Highlands Gold today.
At 0247 local time, 4 B-2 Spirit stealth bombers, call signs Petro 41 through 44, were pushing into Iranian airspace from 3 different vectors. Their mission? Destroy Iranian ballistic missile storage sites buried in deep underground caves throughout the country. The Iranians thought their missiles were safe, but little did they know, they were about to get a taste of the freedom Dorito. Petro 41 and 44 were 90 miles southeast of Tabriz North Missile Base, and the mission commanders are deep in the drop. The complex they're about to hit has some Bond-villain level engineering, with 8 cave entrances and 6 vertical shafts that allow the Iranians to fire straight upwards, even if entombed in the cave. The math is brutal. They have to figure out bearing, speed, time, wind direction, and a half dozen other variables to find that one point in space where they need to release their payloads. And right in the middle of this calculation, their radios squawk with a problem. This is Viper 1, 2 contacts, bearing 045, climbing through Angels 20. Looks like fulcrums. 2 MiG-29s scrambling out of Tabriz Air Base, which sits barely 15 miles from the missile complex Petro 41 and 44 are about to seal shut. The B-2 crews absorb this in silence. Radio transmissions can be detected, geolocated, exploited. Silence is doctrine, but silence doesn't mean call. Here's the problem. A B-2 in a fight with a MiG-29 is like a billionaire in a tuxedo stuck in a dark alley, with a fortune, completely unarmed, and surviving entirely on the hope that nobody notices him. Iranian ground radar searching for a Spirit might as well be looking for a specific grain of sand on a beach at night. But a MiG-29 has an infrared search and track sensor called IRST, and it doesn't care about radar cross-sections. It looks for heat, and 4 General Electric F-118 engines pushing a 150-ton aircraft through thin air are not cold. If those MiGs get within 30 miles, they might pick up the thermal signature. Might is not a word B-2 pilots enjoy. That's why they brought friends. The two F-22s, call sign Viper 1 and Viper 2, pushed to military power and turned toward the contacts. Viper 1's APG-77 radar locks both MiGs from 60 miles. At that distance, the Iranians see nothing on their Zuk-ME radars, specially delivered by Russia last year for exactly this purpose. Inside Petro 4-1 and 4-4, the mission commanders watch the escort peel away on the tactical display. Two triangles pulling northeast, two red triangles climbing southeast. Geometry they cannot control. What they can control is the bomb run. And right now, the timeline says 70 miles to release, 12 minutes. They need those MiGs gone before they get there, because open bomb bay doors multiply the V-2's radar cross-section by a factor of 100. At 12 miles out, any Iranian radar or ground base that happens to be looking in the right direction gets an early Christmas present. The mission commanders keep working. Aperture coordinates confirmed. Tunnel entrance sequences locked. They cannot afford to look up. Outside, the F-22s are closing the geometry. At 50 miles, Viper 1 goes active. Deliberately, he wants the MiGs to know someone is here. Radar warning receivers light up in both Iranian cockpits. Two separate locks. The lead MiG does the smart thing. Banks hard left and descends, dragging toward the mountain ridgeline where the terrain clutter muddies the picture. His wingman follows. They're not running. They're maneuvering, using the valleys northwest of Tabriz to break lock and reposition. This is the scenario nobody wanted. Running MiGs are a solved problem. Let them go. Fighting MiGs in open sky are a solved problem. Shoot them down. MiGs that hide in terrain clutter and probe back toward the corridor every few minutes, that's a cat and mouse game that burns time Petro 4-1 doesn't have. Viper 1, tally lost. Terrain masking. Bearing last 030. 9 minutes to release. The mission commanders work the bomb run checklist in silence while two red contacts flicker in and out of the clutter on the tactical display. Viper 2 picks up the wingman first. Brief infrared bloom as the MiG's engines reheat coming out of a valley turn. Bearing 025, 15 miles, climbing. He's making another push toward the corridor. Viper 2, contact. Single fulcrum, northeast. Climbing through Angels 15, engaged. The Raptor pilot rolls in and takes the shot. AMRAAM screams off the rail, accelerating to Mach 4, seeker locked. At 15 miles, this should be a formality, but the new pilot sees the launch warning and does the one thing that can save it. Rolls inverted and dives straight into a canyon. The valley wall swallowing. The AMRAAM seeker loses the return in ground clutter, and a missile that costs more than people's houses meets a mountainside instead of a MiG. They're not out flying the Raptors. They're out running the geometry, using terrain they've trained in for years to deny
What are you
clean
looking
shots.
at?
Every time
We're
the
looking
hops
for a
above the
news.
ridgeline, the F-22s have seconds before it disappears again. Not enough time for a missile to close the distance before
Ano
the
man eh,
target drops behind
zoom
granite.
in man eh,
It was
Kurt.
the deadliest game of whack-a-mole ever played. Except the moles were doing Mach 1.5, and the hammer cost $1 million a swing.
Yeah,
6
delayed pa
minutes to
yun.
release. Petro 4-1 and 4-4 are locked on course. The pilots haven't touched the controls in 4 minutes. The autopilot holds heading and altitude with inhuman precision, while the crew manages everything else. The mission commanders track 3 conversations at once. The bomb drop checklist, the F-22s hunting in the mountains, and the AWACS tracking the second MiG somewhere in the valleys below. Viper 1 finds the lead MiG. He's circled south and is pushing back towards Tabriz at low altitude. Heading unclear. Could be running for the base, could be swinging wide for another push at the corridor. Either way, he's below the ridgeline and Viper 1 can't hold him long enough to shoot. 4 minutes. The mission commander announces the final sequence. Bomb bay doors will open in 90 seconds. 10 seconds of maximum exposure. Everything in this aircraft, stealth coatings, curved surfaces, radar-absorbent structure, exists to keep the cross-section at marble size. Open doors turn that marble into a barn. Viper 2, fulcrum nosing over, descending back into the terrain.
Where are you from?
The wingman broke off his second push, dove back into the valleys. Viper 2 tracks the infrared bloom fading behind a ridgeline. He's still out there. So is the lead. 2 MiGs playing hide and seek in mountains they know better than anyone, too fast to ignore, too deep in the clutter to finish off. 2 minutes. The mission commander makes the call. The MiGs are below and behind. Current geometry puts them outside 30 minutes. IRST detection at that range, through terrain, against a B-2 at 42,000 feet? Unlikely. Not
Thank you
impossible.
so much.
Unlikely.
Thank you for
The word
subscribing.
B-2 crews
Please
hate.
do watch my
It clears the
uploaded
formation to
videos.
proceed. At
Thank you
02:59,
and
bomb bay
bye.
doors open. Rotary
See you
launchers spin
later.
up. GPS acquisition confirmed on all weapons. Somewhere in the mountains below, two MiG-29